So my wife really wanted a bench in our kitchen bay window to give us some extra seating. The first thing I did was sketch out exactly what I wanted it to look like and took some careful measurements of the walls. By the way, the full supply list is in the description. First, the baseboards needed to come out so the frame could sit flush against the walls. Next, I made a detailed cut list and hauled my lumber outside to my miter saw. Cutting all of the angles were tricky, so I kept referring back to my plans to make sure every cut was spot on. Once the pieces were cut, I did a quick dry fit to check everything. Then I started drilling pocket holes. I was super careful about which side I drilled on so I'd actually have room to get the drill in during assembly. I started assembling from the two ends first. That way I could double check the measurements before tackling the middle section. Turns out I needed to trim a few of the lateral pieces, just a bit, to make sure everything lined up. After that adjustment, the middle section came together perfectly. Then I realized the outlet cover was preventing the frame from sitting flush against the wall. I could have removed the whole outlet, but I decided just to chisel out a recess in the wood as a quick fix. With that taken care of, I screwed all three frame sections into the wall studs and connected them to each other, which made the frame feel rock solid. After the frame went on, it was time to bring in the quality inspector.
But here, don't put on any wood here.
Okay.
You can put wood here.
With the inspector's approval, it was time for plywood. I ran my dimensions through an online cut optimizer, and it told me 2 sheets would do the trick. I went with birch plywood because it's strong and finishes really nicely. Out came the circular saw for the big cuts. And the table saw for those angled edges. I drilled pilot holes and screwed the plywood faces right into the frame, making sure everything was snug. I left the middle section off for now because I still needed to cut an opening for the air vent. On to the trim. I used pre-primed pine, which is super affordable and looks great, and I think it'll hold up well. It was a challenge to figure out the toe kick duct for the vent. My buddy who's a home builder hooked me up. He had his HVAC supplier bend this custom piece out of sheet metal for about 30 bucks. I think there's other ways to do it online, but this was the easiest for me. My jigsaw made quick work of cutting the slot in the plywood. The oscillating multi-tool took care of the frame. The vertical supports weren't screwed in up to this point, so I screwed those in to support the front of the bench next to the vent opening. The duct went in nicely with some duct tape. There's probably a proper way to fasten it to the floor, but I wasn't about to drill into the tile. Then I got the front panel screwed on and started nailing in the trim. It was starting to look really nice. Then I started making cuts for the bench top. After a test fit, I noticed that some of the angles weren't perfect. I didn't really sweat the imperfections though, since I was going to caulk it up at the end. I stacked the plywood 2 layers thick on the bench top. And picked the best looking pieces to go on top. Then it was time to glue. I placed some heavy objects on top to hold it down while it was drying. I cut a few more trim pieces for the front of the bench top and nailed those suckers in. The bench top felt nice and sturdy after the glue was dry. Then I needed to trim the trim. This is the first look with the bench top on, and it looked really nice. I secured the bench top with some finish nails, making sure I hit the frame underneath. I countersunk all of the nails and then broke out the wood filler to patch all the holes and gaps. I used a lot of wood filler. Sanding everything smooth coated our entire house with a nice layer of dust. My wife was thrilled. I just reminded her who wanted the bench in the first place. I recruited some child labor to help me with the primer. Finally, it was time for a couple coats of paint. And finished it off with some clear polyurethane for a smooth finish. The result was as good as we could have hoped for. It's really solid, and I'm sure we'll get years of use out of it. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more builds.